Hi everyone, it's Tom Stanley, and we are back with the lift project on the little 2010 Juke. I've gotten hold of some spring compressors and have decided to give it a try myself. So as you can see this morning, we've gotten her lifted up off the ground and getting ready to have one more go at this, trying to do it myself rather than packing it in and taking it to a shop. So let's see how we get on from here. Looking at it from low down on the ground, you can see that I've used the Juke's own jack to bring it up, and I've got about a 2-inch 50mm gap underneath the tire. I believe that should get me more than high enough up off the ground. Once the wheel and tire is off, should have plenty of ability to drop that suspension again and get in close around those springs. I think the challenge is going to be whether the spring compressor can fit around the springs, but yeah, just showing here the height that I've got it jacked to. And now we're back with the tire and wheel assembly removed. So for those of you that had watched my earlier video, you might recall my concern in this area. It's very tight, and when we look at the spring compressor, trying to find a comfortable way to get it in. We're good on this side, but I'm not so sure that we're good on this side. And if we can't get it on both sides, then it's just not safe to remove this spring with this type of a compressor. There is the long, like leaf style compressor that reaches in bottom and top, and that might be what's required, but we'll find out. So the shock absorber, the nut's been removed from the top. I still need to release it from down here on the bottom. We have to remove the linkage for the sway bar, and as I discovered in the previous video, dropping this really wasn't much of a help at all. So we'll just try to do it with the shock and the sway bar removed, see if we get enough drop on the suspension arms to be able to access and release that spring. Okay, back again. I've got the clamps on. The spring compressor clamps are on the spring, and we still do not have enough downward motion to get this out. It's movable, but it ain't coming out. I'm removing the top suspension arm bolt, which is quite a sticky little devil. So that's going to come out, and I'm hoping that that allows this assembly to drop. Well, just minutes later, it's out, and we've got some pretty good suspension arm drop. See, the spring is coming quite loose now. Still not confident I'm going to get this down far enough to get that spring out, because of the way this rotates in. This has a rotation to it that, yeah, it doesn't look too forgiving. Remember, we got to get 40 more mil of clearance up here. So well, there's only one thing to do, and that is to do it. So here we go. Oh, and by the way, before we go any further, there is this brake line. It just clips into these two little tabs. Well, that's got to come out if you want the mobility to get this thing down. I'm also a little concerned about the CV joint. I wonder how far that can pull before there's a problem. Well, once again, I'll find out as I go along. All right, I'm into it. Wish me luck. Whoops, I'm back. Sorry, I'm a dummy. This is the brake line, and it was hooked over this suspension arm. So with that out of the way now, we've got quite a lot of free movement here. So that little fluid line or air line or whatever that one is, and the brake line, get those out of the way if you want this to come down far enough. This is actually looking a lot more promising than I thought it was going to. Oh well, here we go. One more time. Okay, and it's only a few minutes later. We're back. You can see I've got the original bush spacer out of there. Here's the 40mm lift spacer from Tema. Now that depression in the center has to go up into that centering pin. I have to say, if I had a person here helping me, I believe it'd already be done. I'm having a little bit of a struggle trying to push this down and position this by myself. So with a helper, I think this is pretty straightforward. We'll find out. Once again, back to it. Well, that was a lot of compressing on the springs. As you might expect, they needed to come down, but I've managed it. It's back in. It fits. Because of the bushing, there is clearance above that compressor that didn't have clearance to begin with. So next challenge is going to be reconnecting this suspension arm. I think that's going to be a tricky devil, but again, we'll see as we go. But it's a success, at least, in getting the spring compressed and the bushing in place. All right, I'll be back to work. I'll be back soon with an update. Well, we're back on the reassembly path, and keeping these clear of that upper suspension arm has been a challenge. It keeps wanting to pop back up. As you can see, serious misalignment there, but I think that'll correct itself when I can finally lower that arm back down. One item to note was that in order to get the sway bar link back in, the other side had to come up. So it's pulling down on the sway bar on that side, pulling down on this side, and then that was able to come down far enough that it could be reattached without lifting the other side. There was no clearance around the CV shaft. All right, I'll get back to it. Well, unfortunately, know that lowering the lower suspension arm did not bring that back into alignment. So I've put the jack back under here, and this lower suspension arm, I guess it's the upper rear suspension arm and the lower rear suspension arm. So this one's been loosened so we can have some free travel of this end assembly. I've taken the weight off by jacking, and then between jacking and a little bit of persuasion down in here, I think I'll be able to get this thing sorted. So that's the latest update. So I'm starting to zero in on the alignment, and I've forgone the pry bars. Actually, what I've done is I've brought a jack down underneath the suspension arm, and I'm just jacking on the far edge of it so that it's forcing it to twist, and that's working pretty darn well. So between the two jacks, that being this one twisting the arm and this one raising the whole rear end assembly, a little bit of back and forth, well, more than a little bit of back and forth between the two of them seems to be getting the alignment just about right. So a few more minutes and I suspect I'll be putting the bolt back in. Well, that is looking pretty good. All jacks are out and everything is mounted back up. We've got the top suspension arm bolt back in, and that was a matter of jacking down on this point so that would go at a bit of a twist and angle just with its normal geometry. I had loosened this one just so that this could move kind of freely as well. And between the jack under here, and the jack under here, and then a small pry bar just working down in here, I was able to position that so finally with just a tap from a very small hammer. Never ever use big hammers on this kind of stuff. If it wasn't made to be slammed together, it was made to fit together. And so yeah, in the end, a bit of jigging around with the two jacks and a little bit of prying with a small pry bar got everything aligned. And so that is the left side rear Tema 40mm spring spacer installed. So button up this side and moving on to the next. I hope that's been really helpful for everybody. I know it took me ages to figure this out, and I haven't been able to find any good resources online, which is why I decided to go through the process of videoing this. So I'll leave it at that for now. We'll be on to the front a little bit later on, maybe not today, but see how fast I get through the other side. Well, what can you say but yes to success? Boy, am I glad to have that job done. Well, at least halfway done. It certainly has been a long road from starting in the yard, trying to figure it out to begin with, then getting down, grubbing around in the dirt at the barn, and then finally back up to the yard with the right tools to complete the job properly. I'm pleased to find out that those clamp style spring compressors can do the job. So that was the game changer, I guess. And looking back, I suppose it was no real surprise. It was inevitable that it was going to happen. It's just a matter of hoping that I was going to be able to get through it without them. So yeah, that video wraps up side number 1, and we'll be back with another video on side number 2. Now that one should come across more as somebody that kind of knows what they're doing, as opposed to somebody who's been hunting and pecking and trying to figure it out. However, I do hope you've enjoyed the exploration and the journey with me, and we'll be back for our next video when it posts. So if you like this one, of course, give it the old thumbs up, and if you subscribe, you'll get a notification when the next one comes out. All right, thanks for watching.